For the last 90 days, I've used the Garmin Descent MK3i as my primary diving computer, as well as an everyday smartwatch, and it's far exceeded my expectations in both environments, being underwater as well as on land. In this video, I want to explain why the Garmin Descent MK3i is now a permanent addition to my wrist, as well as some of my favorite things about it and some things I don't really like about it, so you can get a better idea of whether this is going to be your next diving computer. A few disclaimers before we jump into the video. Garmin did send me the Descent MK3 for testing and to create a review. However, there was no instruction about what should be said in any of the content, and there was also no payment exchange. I do get to keep the watch. Second, I want to talk about my experience with other dive computers before the Garmin Descent MK3i. When I first got started out diving, I used Suunto Novo Zoop, or whatever it's called, or Ameris Puck Pro as a rental computer. From there, I went on to use the Shearwater Peregrine and the Shearwater Terek for both 1 year at a time, logging around 50 and 100 dives on each device, respectively. So that is what my reference experience with diving computers is before using the Garmin Descent MK3i.
The primary use case for the Garmin Descent MK3 is a scuba diving computer. It's tracking my safety stop and letting me know how much longer I need to stay at a certain depth range to clear any safety stop obligations. It's also going to track your NDLs, or no decompression limits. In this clip, I actually hit mine and my computer was guiding me through the process of how to clear that. You should definitely keep your dive computer on your wrist, but in this clip, I was just trying to get better footage for this video. And you can see the display is super crystal clear even in a low visibility environment. This dive computer is also going to display your ascent rate in the top right with red bars. In this clip, I was going up a little too fast and my computer was vibrating to let me know that. Two other dive computer features I love is one, the digital compass. You can see it on screen in a couple of these clips, as well as the ability to air integrate. I don't have the air transmitter, but assuming you had one connected, it would display how much air is left on your tank on the watch itself.
The second feature I find myself using the most is the GPS dive log. We can see a list of all of our recent dives, and let's say that we tap into a given dive. This is what information is going to be available to you directly on the Garmin. However, if you open up the mobile app, there's a lot more information available for you to see, and there's also a cool social media sharing feature that I don't see a lot of people using.
So here we are on the iPhone view in the Garmin Dive app, and we can scroll through some of my recent dives. I haven't been getting in the water as much as I would like to recently, but if we were to tap into a dive, the first thing you can look at is a map view. Using your GPS exit point, it's going to try and locate or put where that dive took place. And if you scroll down below, it's also going to try and guess the name of the site. However, I haven't found that to be that accurate, but you can always go in and edit it later. You can look at other metrics like stats, charts, and gear. I don't go in here too much, but if you're really interested in a specific dive's data, you could. This social media feature is one that I wanted to point out, where if you go to your dive overview, click share, and it's going to ask you for a picture to use. And once you set the sizing of the picture, you can customize it with different information like your diving depth profile, how long the dive was, what area you used, and so on. I would like to see more information here, but I do think this is pretty cool.
The next two features I like the most about the Garmin Descent MK3 is the heart rate monitoring and the step counter. What's great about the step counter is because this is a smartwatch, it is always on your wrist compared to a smartphone that you probably set down sometimes. So the step counter is not always accurate. I'm not the type of person that goes out of their way to hit 10,000 steps if I'm low, but it is interesting to track that over time and notice how your weight has changed or your body is reacting. The next thing is heart rate monitoring. It's cool to see what events in my life cause my heart rate to spike or fall. If you wear it for long enough, you can actually get a pretty accurate estimate of what your resting heart rate is, which is a big indicator of your overall cardiovascular health, and not a number that I think a lot of people know. Another feature that I really like about the Garmin Descent MK3i is the sleep tracking and the PADI battery. You can view a decent amount of information on the watch itself about this, and it's basically tracking your body's readiness to go out and dive or perform a workout. This watch actually gets it pretty spot on. I'll put on screen what it was telling me about my dive readiness when I had the flu last week, and you can see that it was a very clear correlation between how I was feeling and what the watch was telling me. I think I had a dive readiness score of 0, so pretty accurate. The fifth feature I find myself using the most on the Garmin Descent MK3 is the alarm clock. and the other timers. You can see there's alarm, timers, stopwatch, time zones. I found myself completely getting rid of my iPhone's alarm and now opt to use the Garmin Descent's alarm clock as it's on my wrist while I'm sleeping. You can set it to be a vibration rather than a sound, which I prefer to wake up that way. And another nice thing about this is that you no longer reach for your phone first thing in the morning when you're waking up, and that maybe avoids you looking at some of those notifications.
I want to talk about three things that I don't really like or could be seen as downsides of the Garmin Descent MK3. And the first one is that when I initially received the computer and started wearing it, I got a lot of scratches or scrapes on my wrist where the pin mechanism goes to secure the watch. I'll include on screen a photo of kind of what it did to me. It could be that I had the watch on too tight, or there's also different bands that Garmin sells, and I'm sure there's aftermarket options available as well, but you probably want to use the Ocean band if you are going to be using it for diving purposes. The second thing that I would dock the Garmin Descent MK3 for is the sheer complexity that it takes to navigate some of its menus. In many cases, you have to do button holds or double button presses or certain scrolling techniques to access different menus or features. And even as someone that uses the watch every single day, I still find myself forgetting how to access some of these menus in it. So it is a complex device, but that also goes to show just how large of a feature set that the watch has. The third thing that I would dock the watch for is the cost of it. As I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I was sent the watch for testing and content creation purposes. I understand that over $2,000 for the transmitter and the computer itself can be a big obstacle for a lot of people.
Let's talk about how to navigate the menus of the Garmin Descent MK3i. You have 3 buttons on the left side as well as 2 on the right. The topmost button is the light button. This is what you use to turn the display of the device on and off. And then you have the menu up and menu down button. So let's say we were to open up the glance menu. By clicking the bottom left button, we can move up and down, and the middle button is going to move us up the menus. By selecting the top right button, you can open up the activities menu. This is where you can see workouts and different diving settings. And by clicking the top right button, this acts as like a confirm, and the screen is also touchscreen, so you could double tap onto there to dive into a menu. Pressing and holding the top left button or the light button is going to open up an admin panel where you can view some of the very important device settings, like the wallet for Garmin Pay. You can use it as a contactless payment system, alarm clocks, flashlights, display on, display off, do not disturb mode, and much more.
Let's talk a little bit about the battery life on the Garmin Descent MK3. So I've probably charged the device 4 times in the 3 months that I've owned it. So that's some seriously impressive battery life, especially because of all the functionality that it has. That's including all the dives that I've taken it on. Probably takes 1 hour to charge it from empty to full. Not that it's ever hit empty. You're not needing to charge the device every single night. You can actually get accurate sleep tracking data.
When it comes to charging, there is a clipping system which makes it very secure that goes onto the back part of the watch. So this is what it looks like when the device is charging. You can see that the clamp is engaged, and you can still use the watch. It'll tell you what percent it has left to charge and how many days that it thinks it will last you. The next feature I'd like to cover is the workout feature. I've messed around with 2 different types of workouts on the device, one being a weightlifting workout and the other one being a cardio workout. As of now, I do much more weight training than cardio training, and I haven't found the weight training aspect of it to be that useful for me, because from what I can tell, you pre-program different workouts in here, and then if you were to hop into a specific workout, let's say a lat pull down, it's going to give you a graphic of what that looks like. When you've been weightlifting as long as I have, you know what the motion looks like, and you also know how much weight you want to do for how many sets and reps. Where I can see this being interesting is if you're a beginner or intermediate to weightlifting and you hired a personal trainer or someone to create different workouts for you, then this could actually be a pretty interesting feature. For those that are into cardio, you can add custom cardio workouts. Here you can see I've done track run, and this is pretty much the functionality you'd expect from any sort of run tracking app. And what's nice about it is it's going to track heart rate and your GPS location so that it can be uploaded to a lot of the popular run tracking cardio activity applications today, like Strava or Aura.
Garmin does have an app store. However, I didn't find anything in here that really caught my eye. I did mess around and use the QR code generator to give a Bitcoin wallet QR code, but it's not the most practical use case.
There's also a Spotify app that you can download in the App Store, and it allows you to store music and podcasts on the Garmin, and this would allow you to listen to these files with your Bluetooth headphones.
The Garmin Descent MK3i in the 51mm model does come with a flashlight, and it's actually surprisingly powerful for the size of the watch. However, this is definitely not able to be used as a primary dive light on your dives or any night diving. The only time I've found myself using it is when I wake up at nighttime, I put on the red light, not to startle my eyes, or maybe sometimes I'm walking down a path outside and there's not a lot of light. I'll just use my watch's flashlight instead of pulling out my iPhone's light. This is not a feature I've used a ton, but it is a cool feature to have on your watch. Should you purchase the Garmin Descent MK3i? I'm not capable of making this decision for you, but what I will say is that it is my favorite diving computer that I've used so far. A diving computer really only needs to do a couple things. It needs to track your depth, your ascent rate, track safety stops and decompression limits, and there's plenty of $200 to $300 diving computers that can accomplish that. So it is by no means necessary. But if diving is a hobby that you love, it's what you want to spend a majority of your free time doing, and money is not an object to you, or you're willing to invest into your diving hobby, then I think the Garmin Descent MK3i is a great option. If none of the on-land features that I cover in this video are that interesting to you, then I recommend you look at some shearwater dive computers, as they have just as much functionality, if not more, when it comes to diving, but they are going to be missing that entire feature set of above land. They also recently launched a GPS dive log feature with their newest air transmitter. That's all we have for today's review on the Garmin Descent MK3i. If you have any questions about the computer and you're considering purchasing one, please let me know in the comments and I'll get back to you promptly. And thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.